Hi everyone, welcome to our meeting. Fellow Rotarians and past district governors and district governor-elects, I am assuming that he will be here, and past presidents. And you know that today our guest speaker is Professor Waleed K Zubari, and he's as you know, very important position holding regarding the water resources, and then the coordinator of the water resources management program and of the UN Water Learning Center for the Arab region at the Arabian Gulf University. Thank you, Professor. Your topic is really what we are into this era right now. And on one hand, all are becoming more and more hygiene, more and more need to clean water. At the same time, we have to save the water. I don't know, you have to tell us how we will achieve. Then, and he is also holding a position in the Water Resource Council of the Kingdom of Bahrain. He's a chairperson. And as we mentioned, that he's the vice president of academic affairs in Arabian Gulf University between 2008 to 2010, and dean of the College of Graduate Students 2010-2013. His MSc degree on field of ground water and mathematical modeling from Ohio University, and PhD degree in 1990 in the same field from the Colorado State University. Since joining the Arabian Gulf University in 1990, he has taught many courses in water resources management and planning in arid regions, in hydrogeology. I am a chemist, by the way, but I didn't know the hydrogeology. You have to tell me this also. And published more than 100 research papers in peer-reviewed journals and conferences and seminars. And we are so lucky to have you today. And then, as you know, topic is the GCC, Bahrain Water Security, with a reflection on COVID-19, as I mentioned earlier. And I believe we need to still remember a couple of our members' birthday and anniversaries. We cannot go ahead with saying the happy birthday. And birthdays is 15 June Halil Al-Uwaidat, and 18 June Lamis Hassar, 19 June Khalid Al-Shakrani, and 21st June Mazin Al-Shahabi, 21st June Abdul Latif Al-Awjan, and 25th June Sima Baki. Anniversaries Abdullah Khalifa, 28th June. And we will, at the end, we don't have cake, but at least we can applaud them after the meeting is over. And I believe now floor is Professor Waleed Zubari. Let's listen.
Subhat.
Yeah.
Subhat, can I remind you of something?
Yes, tell me.
Yesterday was Rotary Club of Salmaniya's birthday, 49th birthday. It's the 9th of June. Thank you.
True, very true. We will celebrate that at the end with the birthdays. Actually, it should be registered in the birthday list. You are very right. Thank you. I'm telling you, guys are in our heart, yani. We chartered you. You didn't go away. Don't remind. I don't want to remind you this. Okay? What do you think, past district governor Nijat Al-Atasi? He says yes. Okay. Thank you. Okay. Okay, Professor Waleed Zubari, floor is yours. We are anxious to listen your research and thought about water scarcity in COVID-19, during COVID-19, during now, as of now. Thank you. Thank you.
Can I start?
Go ahead.
Okay,
please.
Thanks.
I will mute myself, huh?
Okay.
And just a reminder, if you have any question to Professor, please put in the box. We will ask at the end. Okay.
Okay. At the outset, let me just thank you all for having me with you. I can see a lot of veteran water resources professionals, as well as current water resource Jamil, Nazha, our Abdullah, Khalid, Adnan, all of them are on the water sector, so it should be easier for me to talk about the water sector. The topic is so huge, and as Faisal said, that I will be having only 10 minutes. So I try to condense it and focus it on a very, very narrow field of water security. I would like to also share some slides, if I can, Faisal or Sabha. And if you allow me, I will.
Yeah,
do I have to take permission from you, or should I?
Yes, please go ahead. Just
I go ahead. Okay.
click on the show.
I need. You have disabled my screen sharing, so you have to allow me to do that.
Does it work now?
Yeah, now it's working. So does everybody see this, the slide?
Yes. It's showing up on my screen.
Good. Okay. I have tried to condense the presentation into a very, very narrow field, which is the water supply security. I think this is more important at this stage of especially with the COVID-19. My message or my mission today with you is that I would like to show that we normally think that water security or water supply security is the responsibility of the water authorities only, but hopefully I will convince you by the end of this lecture that it is also the responsibility of the consumer himself to be part of that water security efforts. Before we go through this presentation, I would like just to show you what this presentation will go through. I think it's very important to know, I mean, what the hell we are talking about. What is exactly water security mean to us? And you will find that there is no actual definition for water security. I'm trying to, put a definition that's suitable for the GCC. And then what are the main challenges? Once we define what is our water security, we'd like to see, okay, what are the challenges that facing that water security? And there has been some meeting in the GCC, and I was invited in many of those, to talk about COVID-19 pandemic and its impact on water security. So I'm going to be trying to, highlight the main issues that we have, found and what are the main lessons, and then we'll open it for question and answers. So let's start first with what do we mean by water security? What is water security definition? What are dimensions? What is the measurement framework? Can we measure water security? So if you go to the literature, you'll find that there is no exact definition of the term water security. It varies from one country to another. It also varies from scale to another. Some people think about it in terms of cities. Some people think about it in terms of countries. Some people think about it as a group of countries, like GCC countries, all as one system think about water security different from one country to another. There is also a problem in the definition of water security between institutes. You'll find that in one country itself, one agency think about water security different from the other. So that's also a problematic, in designing a methodology how to deal with water security. And however, I mean, there has been a lot of definitions evolving since the year 2000. And if you try to summarize all these, you can find that there are people, when they talk about water security, they talk about water rights. Like people in Egypt think about water security in terms of their water rights in the Nile, and the same thing for Iraq and Syria. Their rights in the Tigris and Euphrates for historical rights. Some people think, and this is what's in the United States emerged after September 11, they were talking about the water supply, protecting our water supply from adversarial actions. Some people think about it, and this is what's happening now in the Gulf, that we think about it, how to make sure that we have enough water supply during emergencies. And some people who are really, like Canada and these people, they think even beyond that in terms of ecosystem health and food production. So these are the, you know, the definitions of water security. And because we have so many definitions, we have also many frameworks and metrics to measure it. And we have, you know, I have listed those that they go from the global to the national to the city to the, you know, system as a MENA, you know, water security. But if we're going to summarize what's happening here in terms of how can we measure, what are the main aspects of water security, you'll find that we have to make sure that we have the quantity and the quality of the water provided to human activities, either for drinking or for my economic activities, and to cope with the hazards and emergencies, and to prevent harm to the ecosystem, and to manage the system efficiently. I'm just going to give one example of those metrics that we use for measuring water security in our countries. It's not applicable actually because it takes river into account, but we don't have rivers, but we are working on developing our own in the GCC. They look at household water security. Do the people have water or not? And economic water security, and this is very important because it goes beyond having the water, how to use the water, and how effective and productive you are using this water, and how much coverage you are having, and is the environment being protected? I mean, we are using desalination plant. Is the environment protected from, you know, from desalination while you are giving us the water security? And the last one is the resilience. Now, I'm trying to, now the departure of my presentation will be now here, that the first four are, we call them developmental perspective, and the last one, which I'm going to be emphasizing today, is the risk-based perspective, and this is where we are going to go now from here. This is my point of departure. I'm not going to be covering the developmental perspective because it takes a lot of time, and actually I teach this in the course, but this one, the small one, I'll try to narrow my presentation to it. Again, the developmental approach and the risk-based approach are complementary. We should not look at them as two separate things, but if you have an emergency, you will need the support of the developmental approach. For instance, if you have a water disruption from the desalination plant, you will need your groundwater in a good shape to help you during this emergency. So I'm not going to be discussing the developmental, I'm going to go directly to the risk-based. So what are the major security challenges for the risk-based? And here we are talking about the water security of the water supply system, the water that comes to our houses for drinking and for hygiene and so on and so on. If you take the water supply system in the municipal water supply system in the Gulf, you will find that it is really threatened by a number of hazards. We are having our desalination plants, they all take water from the Gulf, and the Gulf is highly having a lot of risks happening or threats coming from, could be maritime contamination like nuclear and wastewater, and this is what's happening now in Bahrain. Our wastewater is actually from Tubli is stopping the production, etc., because it is being taken, you know, in the feed water of Citra during low tide. We have also maritime pollution like oil and chemical spills, and also red tide. When you are having, you know, this eutrophication of too much nutrients happening in our seas, they stimulate red tides, where all the water become polluted by, you know, high level of algae and, you know, activities. And we have also, we have the natural disasters like what happened in Oman, where you have, you know, Gono, hurricane or cyclone, when it hit their water supply system and they could not function for some time. And you have also finally the actual combat, that somebody hits your desalination plants, facilities for whatever reason. And as you know, there is a lot of things happening in the Gulf, and there is a lot of threats. There is also a threat to the water supply system. You can have power outage, and Bahrain has experienced this type of thing. One day when we have the whole power in Bahrain was cut, and the whole water supply system actually relies on electricity and and pushing the water from one place to another. You can have also the threat of hacking the SCADA system, where you have the whole control of the water supply can be hacked by if you don't have a good cyber security. And you have also an intentional contamination of your domestic water supply. That's always a possibility. If you are working in the water, you will have to work. And finally, we had this newcomer, the pandemics, and we're going to be talking about this. Now, if you look at the municipal water supply system in our GCC countries, you'll find that you are having the majority of your water supply comes from desalination plants. And if you look at the map here that shows the traffic, the ship traffic, and you will find that there is something like 40,000 ships enter the Strait of Hormuz annually. Something like 50% of those are actually oil tankers. And I don't want to go through the details of this, but if you look at this graph, you'll find there is a brown color, very, very clear in this. This actually, the density, the routes density, there is something like more than 340,000 routes within a 5 kilometer square area is occupied per year, and this is an indicator for the traffic of the of any marine or mineral resource. This map below shows you the oil spills detected by satellites. This has been detected only in 2017. Something like 4,900 oil spills has been detected, and this has impacted something like 14,000 kilometers square. This water will come to you in the desalination plants. That's just an example of the threats that we are having. We don't have anything for the chemicals yet. We don't have anything for the nuclear, but at least that's what we can see from the satellite for the oil. But I have also to inform you that this oil spill is only a reflection of this map is a reflection of the oil and the sea. It could also happen because of the offshore platforms or the operating oil fields, on the Gulf. Now, how do we think about this? How do we mitigate or encounter this type of risk? The GCC country in general, they think about the drinking water supply security in terms of, number one, protecting our drinking water supplies, putting whatever physical means of protecting the inflow of the water from the sea, and establishing a strategic reserve, and then transferring water between areas. And if you look at this graph here, this is the famous Kuwaiti towers. You'll find that Bahrain has 2 days of reserves, that in case there is an oil stoppage in the water, they have a storage of about 2 days. These are maybe they need to be updated, but this has been published by Dawood in 2018. And then Kuwait, they have 5 days. Qatar has 2 days. Saudi Arabia has 3 days. UAE has 2 days. All the countries are trying to increase their strategic reserves to high levels. And the methodology to put a plan for risk assessment and management is very simple. You have to conduct a number of scenarios to know the risk, set targets, how much risk he can acceptable, and then how to manage the risk. So I'm just going to give you an example of a typical contingency and disaster plan. The whole idea is, what are the threats and what can we do about it, okay, until they get resolved and we get back to normal conditions. So we have to think about all the scenarios that can happen, and what are the disasters that can happen in terms of contingency and disaster, and then we have a chain of command of land authority and cooperation with other entities. This is the normal step. I cannot present all the but I'm going to give you just one of the examples from UAE. UAE has a lot of desalinated water that's not being used during the winter time. And instead they are producing, instead of throwing it to the sea or storing it on the ground, they are storing it under the ground in this area, in an area called Liwa. So they pumped the water from here to Liwa. They created a freshwater bubble. That freshwater bubble, in case they have emergency or some of the desalination plants have stopped, they can pump it back to Abu Dhabi area to, for drinking purpose. So they are storing the water through something called aquifer storage and recovery. The Kuwait is also thinking about the same thing by using all their desalinated, surplus desalinated water. Bahrain doesn't have, I think they don't have enough or surplus desalinated water to actually discharge it or to store it, and they are relying on groundwater, above the ground storage. UAE also have an access to the, to the sea, to the Oman Sea or Arab Sea, and they are having all desalination plants that they can take it, work in case there's a spill here, they can work there, and they can push the water all the way to Dubai and Al Ain and the other Emirates. This is just an example of what the GCC countries are doing. Now, let me go just to COVID-19 pandemic and what are the main challenges that faced and the lessons learned. During the pandemic, the GCC Secretariat have done a number of meetings between the GCC officials and specialists, and they started to chat. And I have been invited for 2 of those meetings to write, something about it at the end in a form of report. So I'm just going to give you the main things that has been, discussed during those 2 meetings. And there is a meeting also scheduled. Now, the first thing that has been, noticed, or the main challenge that has been noticed, that during the COVID-19, many GCC countries had curfews, and the human resources became an issue. That their transportation, their coming, their exposure to the pandemic itself was a challenge to get them, and especially that also there are some countries, they indicated that they have some foreign experts could not even travel from their country to come to their, to come back during that period. So that was the main challenge, how to get your human resources. They have done a very interesting thing. They have done a 2080. They are working with the 20 at offices, 80 at home. Actually, some countries like Qatar have actually put like a small hotel for the people to work there, so they don't have to go home, and so on and so on. So there is a lot of experiences that have been learned. The other thing, there was a lot of shortage in spare parts and consumables. That's because, the longer the pandemic duration, the stockpiles become less and less and less. And also there was also a stoppage of many factories in the exporting countries, and this is also have affected many countries, and they start to think more strategic, and I will show on the next slide. There was also a concern of the water safety. The question was, can the virus be transmitted in the water supply? Can COVID-19 be transmitted through water? That was a very important question. All the literature that we have seen from the Americans, from the Europeans, Commission, from the EPA and the United States indicated that COVID-19 cannot be transmitted through water supply if the water supply have been disinfected. If it is disinfected, you don't have to worry about that. So all our system, at least we know that for sure that it is not exposed actually, and it is disinfected very well. The other issue that was also a worry, that now we take that water, we take the wastewater from houses with people who are already, having this infection, and results from, viral studies indicated that this virus can do a viral shedding, so which means it can get out from our stomachs with the waste, and can go to the wastewater sector, and then the wastewater, you are treating that water and then sending it to the farmers to use it for landscaping or for irrigation. So can that virus be transmitted through this process. Again, the same thing. If you are using disinfection with the chlorine and ozonation and other ways, ultraviolet, this is not an issue. The virus will not survive any disinfection processes. So at least there is safe, but still you have to, to worry about the rest. The other thing that's really has emerged is that a lot of people stayed at home, and now the consumption during at houses is different, and the pattern of consumption and the peak demands of the cities changed from a certain time to a certain time. You have to change your operation. That's number one. Number two, can you really do you have the capacity for that type of demand, that people are staying at home, they are using the water more than before? And in Bahrain, even the water has been the tariff or the payment has been actually been exempted, so people don't think about rationalizing water and also using water at different times. So does the system really can cope with that? And how much is the increase in the peak hours, and where are the peak hours now? And normally we know that in the morning there's a demand, after work there is a demand. Now no, the demand has just been happening all the time. And for the wastewater, people when they go home, they take lunch and then they take showers, whatever, and then you can start seeing a lot of peak hours coming. Now this peak hour is not happening at that time, it's happening even before. So this is some of the worry. The last one was the duration of the pandemic. How long this is going to continue? How much capacity we can? What is our resilience for this type of pandemic? And if we can, overcome this pandemic at this stage, is it going to come back again in the fall? Is this going to happen again, and we have to go back to the system and so on? So all these challenges have resulted in a number of lessons to be learned from this, and these lessons I have divided them into operational and strategic. The operational ones, that normally all the strategic plans, all our strategic plans in the whole GCC countries never took the human related constraints into account. They have been made as though the humans are there, but the problem is the system, the infrastructure problem. It's not a human, it's not the ultrastructure, it is only the infrastructure has a problem. There's a lot of emphasis on the infrastructure damage or stoppage, but there was no human resources or ultrastructure plans for that. Now all the GCC countries have changed reviewed their emergency plans to take into account the human side. And also there was a suggestion to do an emergency drills, that one day that we say, let's assume that we would like to rationalize the water because we are having a problem, like what we do for the Earth Day when we stop our electricity and we close our. So there was a thinking that to make the people think about emergency and be ready for it. The other issue is that since you're going to be working online and from distance, you have to enhance your cybersecurity. That's something that you have to really worry about, and you have to analyze your water demand patterns now during curfews and during people working at home instead of going there. And there was a joke that my work should actually pay my electricity and water bill because I'm staying at home, but in Bahrain we are exempted from paying bills, so this is not applicable anymore. So that's the joke. The other three strategic initiatives that we have to learn from this pandemic is that we have to invest in our national human resources. This is a must for us to go with security. We have to localize our manufacturing and spare parts and consumables. So you cannot rely on outside. At least within GCC, you have to have a system so you can transfer spare parts and consumables, and do not rely on imports from outside. And this is the last thing, that if we say that I will provide the water to the consumers, and I will do a lot of work on the supply side. I think it is important to tell the people or the consumers at this stage that their stay at home requires also rationing. And you have to utilize this period of time to tell the people, please rationalize your water to help me serve you better at the time, and to help me give you the water without any interruption. But we should look at the demand side measures and inform the people. In Emirates, they have already made a campaign on water rationalization during the pandemic because of the curfew. They have also made a food consumption rationalization campaigns during the curfew. And I think Bahrain should also do the same. We should start thinking about making the people aware that their stay at home should not make the consumption higher than it was before. That's what I have for you today, and I thank you for having me and and giving me the opportunity to discuss with you this important issue. And I am ready for any Q&A from your side. And let me stop my sharing.
Thank you very much, Professor. Can you? Okay. Yes, you unshared your screen. Before we begin, we have a guest with us. His name is Salim. Someone just give you a minute. Oh, yeah, who's talking?
We can see half of your face.
We have a guest. He is a reporter from Euronews. Yeah, we have a guest. His name is Salim. He's a longtime friend of mine. Anyway, he's on mute. Okay, never mind. I'll move on. We have a question from Dr. Dhafar. It's never this. Oh, okay. He's back on. Hi, Salim. Hi.
Thank you for having me.
I invited my friend. He is a reporter from Euronews, and I might bring him along in some of our meetings. He's basically what he does. He does stories, positive stories about the Middle East, and I thought this would be an interesting topic for him to bring him along to participate with us today.
Definitely. And the desalination was very interesting, and that's definitely something I've wanted to cover. So I'll definitely be in touch in the near future. Good. Sounds good. All right. So we'll start with the questions. What Rotary meeting is complete without a question from Dr. Dhafar? Please, Doctor, you're online.
Can you hear me, Professor Waleed?
Yes.
First of all, thank you, Faisal. Professor Waleed, first of all, thank you very much for joining Rotary Club of Salmaniya. Consider these are all your friends, and this is your other home, inshallah.
They are.
We're proud to have you with us, and we know how expert you are in this field. I'm going to ask you just a political question, not small questions like you already got through chat. I think Faisal got all the questions. But my question is, with you working hard over the years and trying your best to convince people of the danger we are facing in the future, the GCC people together, can they think of a way of regulations or rules or something to stop all these vessels that are entering, I don't know, thousands and thousands of vessels, and dumping all their oil in our water, and then eventually we have to drink from this water? Isn't it high time for them to decide a rule or regulation to find all these vessels that come and destroy our environment? Thank you very much.
Can I, Faisal?
Yes, please.
I reply?
Please.
I reply? Okay. But first of all, the water that comes to your house is not polluted, because if it is polluted, it will not come. They have very nice check system that all the water that comes to our houses or the supply to the people has been tested and doesn't have. But there are threats that when this happens, like for instance now we have Cetra. Cetra station is the intake water of Cetra is actually polluted by the wastewater from Tubli. And when this happens, the water is not being supplied to you. It's actually discharged to the sea, and that's a waste for us. But only the electricity goes, to our houses, but the water supply doesn't go. And this is a problem that it's not the problem of the EWA. It is the problem of the wastewater sector. So this is one of the interaction that has to go. And then when you go to the wastewater sector, they say it's not our problem. It is the funding problem because we don't have the capacity and so on. And we go through this, labyrinth. But anyway, I mean, and for the GCC countries have sat together actually, and in 2010 there was the Abu Dhabi summit, and it was called the Water Security Summit. They said that we have to lower the impact of desalination, we have to protect our desalination, we have to have a comprehensive water strategy for the GCC that's shared and so on and so on. And actually that strategy was produced in 2016 and it was approved in Manama Summit, December 2016 by their Majesties and Highnesses, the leaders of the GCC, but it was approved as a guiding strategy for the GCC countries. So the national accounts, national political will is actually governing this type of work. In Bahrain, at least, we started the national water strategy. We are working on it. We are trying to have it comprehensive and integrated. So it can, I mean, we are talking about protecting our feed water. We are also protecting the human health. We are trying to make sure that we use the water with less risk and so on, so on, so on. So at least, but the problem with the water security, I mean, you said at the beginning that I have been working for a long time on this. Yes, so I've been working and I have seen some progress. There is a lot of change in the mindset of many of the officials. I mean, at certain time, it was very hard to convince the official about something strategic. He thinks only operational. He thinks about the daily, and I don't blame them because they are actually under pressure all the time. But with times, little bit slowly, we started to really convince the GCC and all the other, under secretaries that there is something strategic about this. It's not only the operational side. You have to go strategic because if the problem exists, it will become even worse with time. Not only because of population, not only because of consumption pattern, but also because of climate change is coming and so many things are happening. So I think there has been a success. And I cannot say 100% success, but there has been a lot of change in the mindset of the people. At least we made a connection between scientists and decision makers. At certain times, there was a disconnect between the two. And I think all the decisions has to be made science-based, evidence-based. It's not only an ad hoc decisions. And I think we are going in that direction. That's as politely as I can say it.
Professor Waleed, thank you very much. That was excellent. Thank you.
Okay. Now we have before I go on, as usual, please everyone take a selfie of yourself so I can. I
had a question written and I saw it.
Sorry, yeah, no, I'll get on to the written questions. Just this quick announcement. As usual, everyone, please send me your selfies so I can put it in our weekly video. We have a question here from Hamel Khaja from Rotary Club of Bahrain. How to choose the best drinking water from the supermarkets, and what percentage of salt in the Arabian Gulf?
The bottled water?
I believe bottled water, yes.
Okay, yeah. I mean, this is beyond beyond the lecture, but I can give you my opinion. We have conducted a seminar in Kuwait in January before the COVID on titled bottled water versus tap water. Okay, bottled water versus tap water, and the motto was, water is life, but bottled water is business. Okay, so I think maybe you understand what I mean, but let me summarize to you the main output from this. As Water Science and Technology Association, main output from this meeting. The water supply to your house, actually, I can say from Bahrain and Kuwait and also UAE, I can say that, and Qatar also, that it is actually the top and best quality water that you can have in the world. It has all the qualities required by the WHO, the Water Health and Organization, in terms of characteristics and salts and disinfection and so on and so on. That water comes to you, to your house, is a very good water. Okay, I am drinking myself, but you have to be careful about certain things. The tank on the roof of your house has to be cleaned. You have to make sure that it doesn't have. We have some incidents that there are some animals dying inside the tank, and the people are smelling, and they are saying the water coming to us is bad. Actually, the water is good, but your tank is not being cleaned, so you have to do a clean maintenance. There is also a problem of suspended materials. Sometimes they come. All that you need is a filter. Okay, a filter, not a reverse osmosis plant or anything. It's not. You don't need desalination because the water coming to you is very good. But what you need is a filter to take all these things. It's not going to lower your salts, but it will stop any contamination that's suspended. That's what I can say from the other side. Now, if you don't prefer to drink that water, you can go to the bottled water, and you will find that all this bottled water that in the market, actually, it's not exactly says what it is. Some people call it mineral water. Some people call it natural water. Some people call it desalinated water. Some bottled water. Some people call it tap water. Drinking water. You have to be sure that if you want to pay all this amount of money, it has to be natural water, because all the waters that you are having here in Bahrain and coming from outside, they are actually desalinated water being put in bottles and being given to you. Okay, so it doesn't have anything different from the water that you are receiving from your house, except that it is convenient for you to have it in a bottle. So you have to be very careful in terms of that. The other thing is that some people say it is low sodium. Okay, the sodium, you're talking about a small amount of sodium that actually, you take a lot of sodium from other sources. Your bread has a sodium, your food has sodium, all this, and they are talking about this small bottle of water. It is not good to have very, very low salt content in your bottled water, because that thing, it will actually, it will take all the minerals in your water and in your body and take them out from your body. And this is not good for you, because you are living in a desert area. You sweat a lot, you lose a lot of minerals, and you don't want to lose also those minerals through the water that you drink. So you have to really actually, take a balance, okay? Take a balance in terms of your bottled water. Don't get cheated by those, go to Aquafina. Aquafina, I'm sorry to say this, but if you go to Aquafina, you see a mountain of snow on the bottle. Actually, it is groundwater being desalinated and being put in a bottle and disinfected and given to you. So this, you have to see, this is actually all the water. Some of the companies that they like Evian, like those, they actually get you natural water coming from a spring. That's a different story. But most of the bottled water that you are having in the market, actually, it is the same water that you are having in the tap.
Thank you. نسبة الملوحة في البحر الخليج السؤال الثاني.
Again?
The amount of salt in the GCC in the Gulf, is it high or less at the moment, or is it increasing in the future?
No, it's not decreasing, definitely. But the salt in the Gulf compared to other seas, okay, is more than the other seas because it's a semi-closed sea. The recharge rate, meaning that the replenishment rate, meaning a drop of water comes into enters the Strait of Hormuz and then exited, it takes from 3 to 5 years.
The flushing.
While some 3 to 5 years. So it is. Previously, it used to be a very fresh. I don't want to say fresh, but we used to have a lot of water coming from the Shatt al-Arab, discharging to the sea, lowering its salinity, and now this is not happening anymore. The Shatt al-Arab has been almost dry. So you don't have fresh water coming from Tigris and Euphrates through Shatt al-Arab. So your water actually, in addition, we have also our desalination plants are increasing the salinity of that. Although it is not that much, but it's actually increasing. The third thing is that some studies by UAE, made by UAE, through a consultant who's in oceanography, they said that the Gulf will have more salinity with time. How much this is going to affect us? I'm not a biologist, but I understand it will impact a lot of your coral reef. It should not change. Should not be detrimental in terms of your desalination, because you are desalinating salt water. If it increases a little bit or more, it's not going to make a difference for you. Maybe the efficiency will be less, but again, you will continue to desalinate water. You not have a problem. But I think the impact on the marine life will be high. That's at least what they are saying.
Okay.
Thank you, Waleed.
We have a couple of questions from Andrew, Ernst, Yusuf, Adnan Fakhro, and Hanadi. Andrew, he asks, is there any potential to increase regeneration of groundwork water reserves in Bahrain?
Yeah, groundwater receives in Bahrain receives its water from the equivalent aquifers in Saudi Arabia, from the eastern side of Bahrain, and they come, to Bahrain by underflow. So Bahrain is not receiving any rainfall to replenish that groundwater. So we have two options, to increase the groundwater reserves. The first one is to reduce our production, and try to equate it to the amount received. So it's like a bank account. Whatever you receive, you consume. You should not consume more than what you have. Otherwise, you will have a deterioration in the groundwater. That's number one. Number two, and this is what's happening now in most of the GCC countries, especially in UAE and Oman, that you can enhance the storage of the groundwater by two means. One is rainwater harvesting, that all the rainfall, when it comes, you can try to make it infiltrate to the ground and store it in the ground. And you have also the treated sewage effluent that is a surplus, treated wastewater. When it has a surplus, when you have a surplus amount, nobody is using it, and you are treating it to the tertiary level, which is a very high level, which makes it very good. You can inject it in the groundwater to push the groundwater level and push the seawater from it. So these are the only two things that we have. Lowering our withdrawal, become more rational in terms of our consumption from the groundwater. And the other one is to enhance it artificially through groundwater recharge. And this both are the first option has already been tried, and it has done a very good job. And we can see there is a recovery in the water level from our observation network. And the artificial recharge using the treated wastewater now, the Ministry of Works is actually studying this option. And I'm not sure when it's going to be starting, but we have to do some pilot studies, because putting treated wastewater in the ground also will carry with it some risks for the health and the environment, and we have to make sure that there is no risk from doing this process.
Okay.
Thank you very much. It's been most interesting.
Right, we have a comment from Ernst. Just buy water from original spring like France, Italy, Lebanon, and Turkey. I think that's just a comment from Ernst. Yusuf Fakhro. What are the challenges of water filters like Brita or many others available globally to be brought to Bahrain? My understanding that the quality locally is too harsh on the filters, thereby reducing normal lifespan. Can you please elaborate?
I did not get, I mean, again, can you just repeat, please? I could not hear it well.
Right. What are the challenges for water filters like Brita or many others available globally to be brought to Bahrain? That's the first question. The second one is, he says that it's his understanding that the filter, the water locally is too harsh for the filters, so it reduces the normal lifespan. Can you please explain?
Well, I have not tested the type of filters or brand names of the filters, but I'm not using a filter myself, but I'm just cleaning my tank on the roof. Every year, I bring a guy who cleans it completely, make sure that there is no, there is no mud, there is no any material, and that works for me. I cannot يعني بالعربي ما اقدر افتي في الموضوع اذا ما افهم فيه، بس in general sometimes, and I have noticed that when I using a filter, and my neighbors and they ask me the same thing. They said the filter get stuck or filled very quickly, because sometimes they have the water supplied has a lot of suspended materials. And when I asked the people in the ministry, they said this is the coagulant that they are using to lower the thing. So it's actually coming to the houses, and some of them said this is actually the material of the pipes. So I can't discuss the efficiency of filters, but I can tell you that a filter will help you or make you able to drink the water, because it will stop all the bad things. Well, they are not actually bad, but all the suspended materials in the tap. And maybe Adnan can help in here. He's coming from EWA. I don't want to talk about EWA. They get very sensitive about people getting into their business. But I think, to me at least, I'm living in Hamad Town. The water that I'm receiving, actually, it's best. Because I am measuring the TDS, I'm measuring the pH, I'm measuring a lot of things. I have the equipment at home and I'm measuring them, and I don't have any problem with that. Maybe other areas in Bahrain are having a problem, I'm not sure.
Okay. We have a question from Hanadi. What is the optimal number of days for water reserves? Is 2 days enough?
Well, it's when I was doing a water sector assessment, and I have been told that at that time we had 2 days, and the paper has actually quoted 2 days. But to my understanding, the government is or the EWA is increasing it to 3 and 4 and 5 days. But the question is not how much, is not how many days. And many people don't realize that there is another factor in that. Now, let's imagine that we have an emergency case now. Let's just now we are having an emergency case. Are we going to be using, and we are having 2 days of a storage, okay? And this has been calculated under normal conditions. Are we going to be using the water under emergencies as consumers in my house, irrigating my garden and taking showers and doing all these activities? Am I going to be using this water the same way I'm going to be using it before the emergency? Is this acceptable? It is not acceptable. So that's why when we say 2 days, that's normal conditions, that you are having this as a normal condition. But when there is an emergency, I think the government should tell the people that they should reduce their consumption. And actually, this 2 days can go for 2 weeks if you rationalize your water consumption. So the question is not 2 days. 2 days is an indicator only. But actually, under emergencies, you are not going to be using this 2 days. I mean, otherwise, you will be without water at all. So you have to think about it in terms of emergency situation. But as an indicator, you have to say that I have 2 days of reserves under normal conditions.
Okay.
So it's not scary. It's actually a good thing.
Right. Adnan Fakhro has a few comments. Wait, I'm trying to unmute him. Ah, okay, sorry. Now I need to do. Wait, something's gone wrong. Yeah, Adnan, are you on? No,
You have to.
Oops.
Okay.
Oh, there he is. He's on. Okay.
Professor. Dr. Waleed, thank you so much for your presentation and talk.
Hello,
Alain, I know that you are, you know, for me, you are an excellent presenter, and your talks always very useful and really very fruitful to everybody. And if I may also say that you are perhaps one of the few authorities on the water in Bahrain, especially in the academia. Okay, and you are also working with the strategy and the rest of it. I just have a few things regarding the pollution in the sea, just for the benefit of my colleagues here. They might, you know, some of them might feel scared when you mentioned that this, you know, thinking that all this oil is just going to go into the water, and so they will end up drinking this oil. Of course, this doesn't happen because all the water intakes in the power stations, which is doing the desalination process, are protected, and we watch for that. So if there is any risk, we always would even get down to shut down that particular plant if necessary. But we do fight any spills in the water. So this is just for the safety. And of course, during the process when you're receiving the seawater, there are all kind of filtration and, you know, and screens to get rid of, and chlorination and all everything. So the water, when it gets down to the distillers, it is highly clean. Plus, of course, you do heat it, so it gets down. It gets up to you know, you heat it to be up to steam, and then you condense it, so it is safe. And in terms of RO, of course, there are all kind of chlorination and chemical additions in the water. During storage, you have already, you know, elaborated on the storage, but yes, we do have up to perhaps 3 days, I would say, rather than 2 days. And you are right, it's 3 days. If you go at full normal consumption, you will consume it in 3 days. But of course, an emergency, you know, you will not do that. You will ration, and you will have control of the consumption and the water sent to the people. Plus, we are talking about, you know, the threats in the sea being, you know, pollution or nuclear or whatever it is. And if you were forced to shut down all your plants, all the desalination plants in Bahrain, and of course that can happen also due to power cuts and, you know, power failures. If we have complete blackout, for instance, you still have. We are lucky in Bahrain that we can still have, you know, we can rely on the groundwater up to 30 millions per day, 30 to 35 millions per day. Plus we have the Abu Jarjur, which gives you about 16 millions, and the 16 millions that comes from underground reservoir water, and you are fully aware of that, on the subject. So we have at least 1/3 of the consumption could be continuously produced even without the desalination. So this is part of the, for instance, the disaster plans in case of such things happen in Bahrain. Regarding Citra, yes, you're right. There is always a threat from the tubely, the plant. But I mean, the Citra is only producing 20 millions out of the 180 millions produced on a daily basis. So we can afford to reduce ration the output of that plant. You mentioned about the COVID-19 and the impact on the usage of power and water. We noticed that during COVID-19, the water consumption has went up compared to the normal period. I think because many people stays home, so they use more water than usual, whereas electricity came down, less electricity. And I think this is also understood because lots of factories and lots of major users are not producing as normal. So in overall, there is no impact, on the operations or on the pattern of usage for both power and water in Bahrain. And of course, there's a lot of threats in case sometimes, in the control centers or the power station, you have some people get, infected, effects on the shift, what have you. We faced a few problems like that, but then you try to have some contingency to deal with that. Also, we face some, of course, expertise getting from outside. Yes, you're right. We had faced some that you cannot come and to do some major necessary work. I just wanted to mention that as just comment for my colleagues. Thank you. Thank you, Faisal.
I want to make clear that my comments on what happened in COVID actually is a collection of all the GCC, not necessarily for Bahrain. Bahrain has a lot of Bahrainization percentage in its water sector. But when you go to UAE, Qatar, they really had a problem in having the people coming. Especially they rely a lot on expats. That was really a major problem for them.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. We've reached the 1 hour mark of the meeting. So